Every decision you make, every relationship you build, and every goal you pursue is secretly influenced by four powerful archetypes operating in your unconscious mind. These universal patterns have been shaping human behavior for thousands of years, and understanding them is the difference between those who struggle and those who thrive in today's world. But most people go their entire lives without recognizing these hidden forces, which explains why even successful people hit mysterious plateaus they can't break through. As Carl Jung himself wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." These archetypes don't just influence your life, they control your success, relationships, and fulfillment at a fundamental level. In this video, we will reveal the four powerful archetypes: the warrior who fights for what matters but can become destructive when imbalanced, the lover who connects deeply with others but risks losing boundaries, the magician who transforms through wisdom but may manipulate when in shadow, and the king who creates order and meaning but can become either a tyrant or a weakling when misaligned. You'll take a quick self-assessment to identify your archetype profile and learn the exact 5-minute daily practices to activate your dormant archetypes for immediate results. But before I reveal these archetypes, I want you to consider something important. Think about an area of your life where you feel stuck, perhaps a relationship that's not deepening, a career that's plateaued, or a sense of purpose that feels just out of reach. What if I told you this struggle isn't because you're doing something wrong, but because you're operating with only part of your psychological toolkit? Let's meet Michael. Despite being highly successful in his career, his relationships kept failing. He couldn't understand why he could conquer the business world, but couldn't maintain a meaningful connection. The answer? His warrior archetype was overdeveloped, while his lover archetype was almost completely dormant. Once he recognized this imbalance, everything changed. Today, you'll discover which archetypes you've been neglecting and exactly how to awaken them. Let's begin. What exactly are archetypes? Think of them as universal patterns or blueprints that exist within the collective unconscious of humanity. They're not just theoretical concepts, they're psychological forces that shape how you perceive the world, how you respond to challenges, and how you connect with others. Carl Jung, the pioneering psychologist who first developed this concept, believed that these archetypes represent fundamental human experiences that have been repeated throughout history. They exist across cultures, across time periods, and within each of us. But here's what makes this understanding so powerful. These archetypes don't just exist, they actively shape your life, whether you're aware of them or not. Think about the last time you faced a significant challenge. Did you confront it head-on, or did you avoid it? Did you approach it logically or emotionally? Did you seek help from others or try to handle it alone? Your response wasn't random. It was influenced by which archetypes are dominant in your psyche and which ones are underdeveloped. The problem is that most of us naturally develop some archetypes while neglecting others. This creates imbalance. It's like trying to drive a car with only 2 wheels. You might move forward, but the journey will be rough, limited, and eventually unsustainable. Before we explore each archetype individually, I want you to understand something crucial. There are no good or bad archetypes. Each one serves an essential purpose. The goal is not to eliminate any of them, but to develop and integrate all 4 into a balanced whole. Now, let's explore these 4 powerful forces that are shaping your life right now. The first archetype we'll explore is the warrior. This is the part of you that sets boundaries, takes action, and faces challenges head-on. The warrior within you is responsible for your discipline, your courage, and your ability to protect what matters. Think about someone you know who seems fearless in pursuing their goals, who stands up for themselves and others, who takes decisive action rather than just talking about it. That person is expressing strong warrior energy. But here's where it gets interesting. The warrior isn't just about physical strength or aggression. It's about the psychological strength to face difficult truths, to say no when necessary, and to make sacrifices for what truly matters. How do you know if your warrior is underdeveloped? Look for these signs. You avoid conflict at all costs. You struggle to set and maintain boundaries. You procrastinate on important tasks. You feel powerless to change your circumstances. You let others take advantage of you. If you recognize these patterns in yourself, your warrior archetype likely needs strengthening. Conversely, an overdeveloped warrior brings its own problems. You're constantly in fight mode. You struggle to show vulnerability. You're workaholic and can't relax. You see compromise as weakness. You alienate others with aggressive behavior. We see this frequently in high-achieving professionals who can dominate in their careers but struggle in personal relationships. They've developed their warrior to the point where it overshadows the other archetypes. Here's how the warrior controls your life. It determines your ability to take action toward your goals, to protect yourself and your loved ones from harm, and to stand up for your values. Without a developed warrior, you'll struggle to make meaningful progress in any area of life. But how do you develop a healthy warrior? Here are 3 practical exercises you can begin today. 1. Physical training that pushes your limits. 2. Practice saying no to requests that don't serve your priorities. 3. Set clear boundaries in one relationship where they're lacking. Let us share a quick example of how this transformed someone's life. James was a talented designer who kept getting passed over for promotions. Despite his creative brilliance, he couldn't assert himself in meetings and would let others take credit for his ideas. His warrior was severely underdeveloped. We started with small boundary-setting exercises. First in low-stakes situations, then gradually in more challenging ones. Within 3 months, he was confidently presenting his ideas, negotiating for resources, and standing his ground when necessary. 6 months later, he received the promotion he deserved. The key insight about the warrior is this: it's not about dominating others, it's about mastering yourself. A healthy warrior knows when to fight and when to yield, when to push and when to rest. Now, let's move to our second archetype, which balances the warrior's strength with something equally powerful but completely different. If the warrior is about boundaries and action, the lover is about connection and experience. This is the part of you that forms deep bonds, appreciates beauty, and experiences life through your senses and emotions. The lover archetype is often misunderstood. It's not just about romantic relationships, though that's certainly part of it. It's about your capacity for joy, pleasure, creativity, and meaningful connection in all areas of life. Think about someone you know who seems fully alive, who experiences emotions deeply, who creates beautiful things or relationships. That person is expressing strong lover energy. How do you know if your lover is underdeveloped? Watch for these signs. You feel emotionally numb or disconnected. You struggle to form deep relationships. You find little joy or pleasure in daily life. You're uncomfortable with physical affection. You see emotions as weakness or inconvenience. If these patterns sound familiar, your lover archetype likely needs awakening. On the flip side, an overdeveloped lover without the balance of other archetypes can create its own problems. You become emotionally dependent on others. You struggle with boundaries in relationships. You chase pleasure at the expense of responsibilities. You're overwhelmed by emotional intensity. You make decisions based solely on feelings. Here's how the lover controls your life. It determines your capacity for intimacy, your ability to find meaning and joy in everyday experiences, and your creative expression. Without a developed lover, life becomes mechanical, relationships remain superficial, and work lacks passion. So how do you develop a healthy lover? Here are 3 practices you can begin immediately. 1. Mindfulness meditation focused on bodily sensations. 2. Creative expression without judgment, expression in art, music, dance, writing. 3. Vulnerability practice. Share something personal with someone you trust. Let's see how this transformed Sarah's life. As a high-powered attorney, Sarah had developed her warrior archetype to perfection. She was assertive, disciplined, and effective. But her relationships were suffering. She described herself as emotionally unavailable and couldn't understand why her marriage was failing despite her material success. She focused on developing her lover archetype through daily sensory awareness practices and gradual vulnerability exercises. The transformation wasn't immediate. It took time to reconnect with emotions she had suppressed for years. But 6 months later, she described feeling alive again. Her marriage improved dramatically, and surprisingly, so did her work. She found she connected better with clients and colleagues when she allowed herself to be more authentic. The key insight about the lover is this: opening yourself to connection doesn't make you weak, it makes you whole. A healthy lover knows how to be vulnerable without being dependent, passionate without being consumed. Now let's explore our third archetype, which brings a different kind of power altogether. The magician archetype is the part of you that transforms, learns, and accesses deeper wisdom. This is your inner alchemist, the aspect of yourself that turns information into knowledge, knowledge into wisdom, and problems into opportunities. Despite its mystical-sounding name, the magician is deeply practical. It's the part of you that sees patterns others miss, that understands systems, that can envision new possibilities. It's your capacity for self-awareness, strategic thinking, and personal transformation. Think about someone you know who seems to understand things at a deeper level, who can explain complex ideas simply, who consistently turns challenges into opportunities. That person is expressing strong magician energy. How do you know if your magician is underdeveloped? Look for these signs. You feel confused by complex situations. You struggle with self-awareness. You repeat the same mistakes without learning. You resist new information that challenges your beliefs. You feel powerless to change your circumstances. If these patterns sound familiar, your magician archetype needs development. Conversely, an overdeveloped magician without the balance of other archetypes creates its own problems. You overthink everything, leading to analysis paralysis. You manipulate others rather than influence openly. You're detached from emotions and physical reality. You use knowledge to feel superior to others. You're cynical or dismissive of others' perspectives. Here's how the magician controls your life. It determines your ability to learn from experience, to solve complex problems, and to transform yourself and your circumstances. Without a developed magician, you'll struggle to grow beyond your current limitations or to navigate complex situations effectively. So how do you develop a healthy magician? Here are 3 practices you can begin today. 1. Regular reflection through journaling or meditation. 2. Study a complex subject outside your comfort zone. 3. Practice reframing problems as opportunities. Let's see how this transformed David's life. As a successful sales professional, David had strong warrior energy, discipline and action, and lover energy, connection with clients. But he kept hitting the same ceiling. He couldn't understand the larger patterns in his business or develop strategic solutions. David focused on developing his magician archetype through daily reflection practices and systems thinking exercises. Within months, he began seeing patterns in his sales process that were invisible before. He developed a new approach that transformed his results, not by working harder, warrior, or building stronger relationships, lover, but by working smarter, magician. The key insight about the magician is this: true power comes not just from action, but from transformation. A healthy magician knows how to turn obstacles into opportunities, information into wisdom, and experience into growth. Now, let's explore our 4th and final archetype, which brings all the others into alignment. The king archetype represents your capacity for leadership, order, and purpose. This is the part of you that creates structure, that takes responsibility, that brings blessing and order to your realm, whether that's your family, your workplace, or your community. The king is not about dominating others. It's about serving something greater than yourself. It's the part of you that can see the big picture, make fair decisions, and create systems that benefit everyone, not just yourself. Think about someone you know who brings calm to chaotic situations, who seems to have a clear sense of purpose, who helps others find their place and thrive. That person is expressing strong king energy. How do you know if your king is underdeveloped? Watch for these signs. You lack a clear sense of purpose or direction. Your life feels chaotic and disorganized. You struggle to make decisions with confidence. You avoid taking responsibility for your life. You feel like a victim of circumstances rather than a creator. If these patterns sound familiar, your king archetype needs strengthening. On the other hand, an overdeveloped king without the balance of other archetypes creates its own problems. You become rigid and controlling. You struggle to adapt to changing circumstances. You micromanage others rather than empowering them. You become isolated in your authority. You prioritize order over connection and growth. Here's how the king controls your life. It determines your ability to create meaningful order, to lead yourself and others effectively, and to live with purpose. Without a developed king, your life lacks direction, your potential remains unfulfilled, and chaos often reigns. So how do you develop a healthy king? Here are 3 practices you can begin today. 1. Create a personal mission statement that defines your purpose. 2. Establish consistent daily routines that bring order to your life. 3. Take on a mentoring role where you help others develop. Let me share how this transformed Lisa's life. As a creative entrepreneur, Lisa had strong lover energy, creativity and passion, and magician energy, innovative thinking. But her business was chaotic. She missed deadlines, struggled with finances, and couldn't scale beyond herself. Lisa focused on developing her king archetype through creating systems and establishing clear boundaries. The transformation was remarkable. Within months, her business became more structured, her income more stable, and her impact greater. Most importantly, she found a deeper sense of purpose that guided her decisions. The key insight about the king is this: true leadership begins with self-governance. A healthy king creates order without rigidity, provides direction without control, and serves a purpose beyond personal gain. Now that we've explored all 4 archetypes, let's discover how they work together and how to identify your unique archetype profile. Now comes the exciting part, discovering your own archetype profile. Everyone has all 4 archetypes within them, but most of us have developed some more than others. I'm going to guide you through a quick self-assessment. For each archetype, rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being completely undeveloped and 10 being fully developed. Be honest. This is not about where you want to be, but where you are now. Rate your warrior 1 to 10. Ask yourself, how comfortable am I with conflict and setting boundaries? How effectively do I take action toward my goals? How well do I protect what matters to me? How disciplined am I in pursuing what's important? Rate your lover from 1 to 10. Ask yourself, how deeply do I connect with others? How much joy and pleasure do I experience in daily life? How comfortable am I with emotions and vulnerability? How much beauty and creativity do I express or appreciate? Rate your magician 1 to 10. Ask yourself, how well do I learn from experiences and mistakes? How clearly do I see patterns and systems? How effectively do I transform problems into opportunities? How developed is my self-awareness? Rate your king from 1 to 10. Ask yourself, how clear is my sense of purpose and direction? How effectively do I create order in my life? How confidently do I make decisions? How well do I lead myself and others? Now look at your ratings. The lowest scores indicate your underdeveloped archetypes, the ones that need the most attention. The highest scores show your dominant archetypes, the ones you rely on most. Most people have a clear pattern. For example, you might be strong in warrior and magician, action and transformation, but weak in lover and king, connection and order. Or you might be strong in lover and king, connection and order, but weak in warrior and magician, action, and transformation. These patterns explain so much about your life. If you're strong in warrior but weak in lover, you might excel at achieving goals but struggle with relationships. If you're strong in lover but weak in warrior, you might have wonderful connections but struggle to set boundaries or take decisive action. But here's what's truly powerful. These archetypes are not fixed. You can develop your weaker archetypes through conscious practice, and when you do, everything changes. When all 4 archetypes work together, they create a powerful synergy. The warrior provides the courage and discipline to act. The lover provides the passion and connection to make it meaningful. The magician provides the wisdom and perspective to make it effective. The king provides the purpose and order to make it sustainable. Think of it as an inner council. When you face a challenge, you want all 4 archetypes at the table, offering their unique wisdom. The warrior says, "Let's take action." The lover asks, "How will this affect our relationships?" The magician inquires, "What can we learn from this?" And the king considers, "How does this serve our greater purpose?" Integration does not mean all archetypes are equally active all the time. Different situations call for different archetypes to take the lead. The key is having an access to all 4 when you need them. Here's your practical mastery plan for developing your archetypes. 1. Focus first on your weakest archetype. Commit to 1 daily practice for the next 30 days. 2. Notice when you're over-relying on your dominant archetypes. Ask yourself, what would my underdeveloped archetypes suggest in this situation? 3. Create reminders in your environment. For example, if you're developing your warrior, place an object on your desk that symbolizes courage and boundaries. 4. Find role models who embody your weaker archetypes. Study how they think and act. 5. Practice archetype meditation. Imagine each archetype as a distinct character within you. Dialogue with them, especially the ones that feel distant or unfamiliar. Remember, this is a journey, not a destination. Even Jung himself believed that individuation, the process of integrating all aspects of the self, is a lifelong endeavor. The goal is not perfection, but growth and balance. We've covered a lot in this video. We've explored the 4 powerful archetypes that shape your life. The warrior who provides courage, discipline, and boundaries. The lover who offers connection, passion, and creativity. The magician who brings wisdom, transformation, and awareness. The king who creates purpose, order, and leadership. You've identified your unique archetype profile and learned specific practices to develop your weaker archetypes. But before we end, I want to leave you with one final thought. These archetypes are not just psychological concepts, they're pathways to wholeness. When you develop all 4, you don't just solve specific problems, you transform your entire experience of life. Imagine waking up each morning with the warrior's clarity and discipline, the lover's passion and appreciation, the magician's wisdom and perspective, and the king's purpose and order. Imagine facing challenges with all 4 archetypes working in harmony. This is what it means to live a truly integrated life. Not perfect, not without challenges, but whole. And if you've found this valuable, I have something special coming next. In my next video, The 4 Archetypal Languages of Love, I'll show you exactly how these archetypes shape your relationships in ways you've never realized. You'll discover how to speak your partner's archetypal language and transform everything from your communication to your intimacy. Because once you understand how archetypes influence your relationships, you'll never experience connection the same way again. I'd love to hear from you. Which archetype do you need to develop most? What practice will you commit to for the next 30 days? Share in the comments below. If you found this video valuable, please give it a like and subscribe so you don't miss the Relationship Archetypes video coming next. And if you know someone who might benefit from understanding these archetypes, share this video with them. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of the 4 powerful archetypes. Remember, they're already operating in your life. The question is, will you let them control you unconsciously, or will you master them consciously? The choice is yours. And I'll see you in the next video where we'll take this understanding to an even deeper level.